All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PCM podcast. Today, I'm your host, I guess. My name is Homosexual. I represent the centrist. With me are Andrea Vell from Lib Left. How are you doing today?
Doing rather well. This is my first time on a PCM or other political type podcast, but I'm glad to be here and representing the side of liberty and economic equality. Good to be here.
Sounds great. We also have Liquid Narrator coming back from the previous podcast.
I
How
don't
are
know
you
why
doing?
I'm back here, but I'm doing all right.
Me,
Probably
me neither,
studying.
honestly.
Yeah, this will probably be I think my grandkids will really enjoy this when it comes out eventually. I probably won't be around to hear it though. Maybe for the best.
And we also have King Proxy General representing Oathright.
Thank you.
Are we done?
As you
Are we
can
gonna
notice, we
talk
don't
about,
have an oath left today. We sent him to Gulag because he dared to associate with this podcast. And yeah, I
But
guess
still.
shall we go into the topics?
Right, and then okay.
Yeah. So today's topic is drugs, drug use, and legalization, perhaps. So, yeah, what's your opinions on the topic?
Who wants to start, man? Or shall I?
I can start, and then I suppose
we can do it in order of when we're. I understand. Yeah. So you want to start then?
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and come from the position that first of all, I think that punishing drug usage is, in my opinion, a very much not a societal good. Now we can say that I think it's pretty obvious that overuse of drugs is not a good thing on the personal level or the societal level. Like alcoholism, being addicted to heroin, things like these. I mean, they have very pretty obvious negative effects for the people that are going through them and the people around them. But the question of whether or not those should be then subjected to, for instance, imprisonment, fines, the other negative things that come from being, targeted by the police. I don't think that is necessarily a societal good. So then the question becomes, what should the laws be regarding drug consumption? I suppose, if we're dividing this up into the quarters of the quadrant, it's going to become pretty obvious what my stance is. But I do believe that drugs, at least the consumption of various substances, should be decriminalized. I don't think that possessing or consuming pretty much any drug should result in punishment for the person receiving them. Based on, if drugs are highly addictive and have, wildly negative effects on the consumers, there is an argument that could be made that distributing them is something that you should not encourage. But I think that, especially for people that are addicted, throwing them into the incarceration system is not a viable solution in any way, shape, or form. And I'll go ahead and just leave it at that for now. We can later talk about the negative or positive effects of, psychedelics on freeing the human soul or whatever the hell people want to talk about. But I'll, just make this the first little topic we throw in there.
Okay, so
I honestly kind of agree with that position, but I honestly feel like there should be some punishment for drug use, especially like for hard drugs, because, I mean, regardless if it's good or bad for the individual, it will dissuade people from trying drugs, which is probably good. But yeah, the thing is that if we just let like drugs free and we don't prosecute the people who do drugs, I feel like that will kind of encourage them. But I also believe that there should be harsher sentence for the people who sell drugs and the ones who create them.
All right, I'll go then, I guess. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go out and just say this: drugs are bad. Like, don't do them. And I do agree with decriminalizing most of them. The only one I would say don't decriminalize is PCP, specifically because that one is known for making people violent. Mark Wahlberg can tell you that. But yeah, that's the one where I can just say, yeah, there's an argument there. While the rest of them, it's just if someone's taking heroin in their own home and it's not affecting anyone else, it's not really it's their business. However, like with what homie was saying about making them illegal to stop people from going towards them. I view that similar to how I look at something like sexual degeneracy, where it's bad. You shouldn't do it, but it shouldn't be illegal. And as a society, we should promote not doing it. Like that, there should be like an accepted rules of society that like don't do that. And if you're gonna do it, we don't want anyone to know about it. It's a behind closed door kind of thing. But I wouldn't say to criminalize it would be a good way of dealing with that, because yeah, it is just a waste of time. The war on drugs has failed miserably, so I think something like, I'm assuming we all know what the Silk Road is, something like that where everyone's able to, when people are able to buy it, you've not got things like drug debt, buying it is completely safe, there's not going to be anyone getting shot or stabbed over buying drugs. I think that's probably like the better solution we have for something like that, as yeah, it keeps people safe when they're buying it. And then at the yeah, that's probably what I would say. Is yeah, they're bad, but they shouldn't be illegal. No, King Proxy can come. Yeah, we're all wrong.
Alright, I think that maybe this opinion might be one of the most controversial ones on the podcast, but I believe that basically the majority of the drugs should be legalized. And that goes for whether you consume or traffic the specific drug. I believe that, I mean, I appreciate personal freedom on some circumstances, but drugs of any kind are a hazard to the health of the individual. And the state should help those individuals from succumbing to these health hazards, to protect their lives, if you will.
I was just gonna ask then. So are you for the making cigarettes and alcohol illegal as well, then?
Smoking, yes, I agree, but not drinking. I believe that drinking is more demonetized than it is for your health. Like
I was gonna say that like
it's hard to
drinking
explain,
actually,
but
the thing is,
uh,
drinking can actually be quite like people get addicted to that really bad and can just absolutely destroy your life as well. I mean, you can see all. I think it's kidneys that fail from alcohol, right? Like that happens with that as well. From taking it in excess, while you take something like weed, for example. There's not
yeah,
too much,
that's the point, though. That
there's not too much of a difference between the two, though.
alcohol really hurts you if you take it in excess. Like I don't disagree with you. Alcoholics really have quite massive health issues, especially when it comes to the brain and the liver. But that's the thing with alcohol. It only hurts when you take it in excess, and that excess comes in great. How can I say it? In great quantities.
Yeah, but like if someone's, we'll use weed as an example, so I'm going to someone harder because weed tends to be the thing that people talk about. Like that's what they're talking about in the States, very occasionally over here in
Yeah, but
Britain.
weed can be dangerous to your health at any dosages because any dosage of weed is highly addictive. Like you can drink a beer or two on a casual rate, or say wine, which is I think wine is
I
kind
feel
of
like weed is about the
lighter than
same
beer.
level.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
about
like weed is about the same level of possibility to get addicted to as alcohol, actually, but don't have any studies on it.
I know quite
It
a few people
depends.
who have like smoked a little bit of weed and that like that's it. It's similar to alcohol where like you can take one drink and you're not like throwing away addicted to it. Like I don't drink or do drugs. Like I've tried beer, not my thing. And when I try that, like I'm not right. Like oh my god, I'm immediately addicted. And I know loads of people who were like that with weed. Were like they tried it one time, they were like, okay, this ain't for me, and that was it. it's not like when someone tries heroin for the first time, as an example. Like you're gonna get quite a lot of people are gonna get addicted when they take heroin, like because of the effects it has on their body and all. Well, weed is not anywhere near as strong as something like that. Like I'd say they're probably about the same level. Alcohol and weed are probably about the same level. It's just for some reason, as a society, we've decided that alcohol's okay, but weed isn't. Again, I'm not encouraging either to be taken in excess. Like, I'm gonna make that absolutely clear when I'm arguing for the legalization of drugs. I am not for anyone.
I mean,
Doing
that's
them?
not something we disagree with. I don't think anyone here believes that drug use is completely fine.
Yeah, I think I think we completely agree on that part, that they're bad. It's just how you deal with that bad, I think, is where we're disagreeing. I think it's just a matter of personal freedom where, like, there's a lot of things that can be harmful for you, that the government, like you take something like obesity, for example. That's not good for you. But, like, should the government come in and say, no, you're not allowed to eat, let's stuff your face with fucking cakes and shit? Like, again, obesity's bad. It's really fucking bad. It's a serious problem.
Yeah, it's bad, but there should be a healthier lifestyle should be the one that's promoted.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing,
Which,
yeah.
which
Exactly.
doesn't necessarily happen, which is kind of the same thing with drug use. It's more like, no, it's illegal, but wink wink, if you do it, we don't mind.
The
yeah.
thing with it depends on the drug. I believe that we reference drinking, for example. I believe that drinking. I tried to explain this, but I should put this in another way. Drinking isn't addictive in the same amount as other drugs, including weed, for example. Like drinking a bottle of beer or wine once or twice a week isn't hazardous to your to your health. Some doctors could even say that drinking a bit less than a bottle of wine a day could help in your heart in
A
the
bottle?
It's a glass, by the way.
glass.
They
glass,
drink-
yeah.
yeah,
Wait,
glass
my
of
mistake
wine.
here.
That was a good
Yeah.
one. What the fuck is he on about?
A small
Yeah.
bottle.
That was a brain fart. I meant glass, not wine. I mean, I've drank a bottle of wine once, but you shouldn't do it on a regular basis. That's for sure. So some doctors could argue that, and there are papers on this, that drinking about a bit less than a glass of wine a day could even help could even help your heart rates, improve your cardiovascular health.
Oh, really? I don't know much
Yeah.
about that. It's not something I've looked into. I'll
Well,
take your
there
word on
is a body of research that supports that. Recent research has shown, though, that the negative effects of alcohol scale like complete. There is no safe level of alcohol for your brain health. That even just like a glass of alcohol a day over a long term will prematurely age your brain. So there's repeated research comes in. In terms of heart health, I will say that
Depends on depends on
So
the
what you-
research, to be honest, because some research agree with what you're saying, but others don't. It's a controversial topic to the scientific community.
So since it aids your brain, what I get from that is that we should feed babies whiskey in order for their brains to mature faster.
it works that way. I think it's like the bad aging effects
The
only.
the Scottish way of having a baby. If you don't baptize your baby in Scotch, you ain't raising it correctly. And they rate lads.
No, you see how like apparently like girls age not mature like a little quicker than boys. What you should do to like to even that up if the left one's full of quality is just like baptize your son into whiskey, just inject like straight vodka into their head. There you go. They've matured quicker now.
Yeah, mixed in with their water. So they feel like it's normal while growing up.
Just put vodka in the school water.
I think we're going to need a literally Brave New World instead of literally 1984 meme at this point, because that was
Probably.
literally
More realistic.
Brave New World.
Honestly,
Well, we
I
need
would
to
like-
Have you seen the meme with the guy's like, this is like George Orwell's book, 1984. What the fuck am I doing? Okay, shit. My monitor just went
Literally
black.
1984.
My monitor just went black. It's fine now. I put my mouse, so I just thought my PC just crashed.
Are you all right?
Literally 1984.
Yeah, it's all
Big brother is watching you, mate. He didn't want to hear that.
yeah. Biden's fucking what's it called misinformation team heard that and immediately decided to shut me down.
I mean, I think he literally has a team hard to do this on computers. I remember reading, or not Biden specific, I mean media companies in general. I remember reading about Facebook or Twitter, I think, having like a task force.
Like DDoS
Speci-
attacks.
Yeah, specifically hired to handle trolls, harassment, NSFW shit and stuff like that. And I've read that basically weeks of constant working on that kind of topics basically mess them up, and they submitted papers to the company for mental support to doctors, like having seen too many troll messages.
Yeah, I think when I read the articles, I think I read those same articles, King. And the thing I specifically remember reading is teams that are tasked on filtering content. So are specifically the one that causes them mental trauma is child pornography, or rather, child sexual abuse content that they have to, troll through everything and flag, and then say that these people are putting it. Obviously, for any normal human being trying to go through that pile of filth as a job will obviously cause you mental issues. Yeah, I think it wasn't just drugs and stuff. Like, that was the one I heard in terms of that. But
Yeah.
It sounds like did any of you play Mortal Kombat 11? So when they were animating the fatalities for that, an issue like that was coming up was that the developers were being forced to watch all these gore videos to figure out like, oh, if I rip someone's organs out this way, this is how it's going to look. And like loads of them were getting like PTSD.
You know what's
because they were
there
being forced to-
is.
Well, yeah, they were being forced to watch gore videos of like people's like getting gutted and stuff for Mortal fucking Kombat.
yeah,
believe
so
that's
is it
the
okay if
start-
we go back to? I think we're getting a little bit off topic, which
Yeah,
is fine
yeah.
if that's
bit, yes.
what we're doing. But just to sort of pull back what because we've already done sort of a round of everybody. It does seem that everybody here is in agreement that we do not believe that personal drug use is a good thing. That the minimizing drug use for people in general is a good thing. I'm gonna have a little bit of a lib left moment and say, well, I think a little bit of psychedelics as a treat sometimes is a good thing, but I'm not gonna expect anybody else here to agree on that.
You make it sound
Outside
like
of
something you
that-
give your kid like after they've had their dinner.
Nah, you gotta wait until they're adults. I'm gonna at least, I'm not gonna have a total lib left moment. I'm gonna have a minor lib left moment and say, wait until they're adults, and then be like, the DMT. You've become a man now, Timmy. But I will say that for anything that's sort of addictive,
didn't know we had
anything
to
that
go
has
on this.
like negative health effects, the addiction is a particularly one, where if there's physiological addiction in particular, or mental addiction, as anything can be mentally addictive, if it's pleasureful, and then can negatively impact people's lives. It seems that everybody here is in agreement that that's a bad thing. And then there's sort of different approaches to well, how do we deal with it? It sounds like King Proxy General believes that imposing some kind of not civil, but even criminal penalties will encourage people not to do it, and that's the better way to prevent them from doing so. And I believe that Liquid and I, as the Liberty scum, haven't really given a suggestion for how to minimize these things. It's So, does somebody want to hear, Liquid give an option for what he thinks, should be done about drug problems, or if we should just leave drug problems like there? Is that an okay thing to ask?
Yeah, that's fine. So you
what
talk
you said
about
about
like
the
how they addicted,
psychedelic.
or
Wait, homie, I think wants to have the floor for a second.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, about the thing you said about psychedelics and like legalizing them. I also agree with that, and I say just lump in weed and drugs that you are not that likely to get addicted to, and have some like a government program like they have like in the Netherlands, where you can go to certain cafes and all of that, but have certain rules like a limit. So you can go like once a month. You have a membership card, and you go there, like they stamp it. You do your drugs and just go off on your day. I do believe though that from a research study I've read like a bit ago, so I don't know if it has been debunked. It was talking about how weed does affect the brain on underage people up until like the age of 24 when your brain development is done. So I feel like, you know how we have a limit for alcohol at 18 here in
that's
Europe,
true.
yeah, 21 for gambling. I feel like we should put that like 25 for drugs after your brain has fully developed and you're actually like mature enough to know what's going on and to kind of understand how drugs work, and kind of like how America has guns and that you need to respect them in order to have fun with them. Because if you leave it unregulated, it might lead to other problems. But yeah, that's my opinion.
I just want to make a point about what you're saying about the Netherlands with how they do it. So we have a huge drug problem over here in Scotland. We are number 2 for drug overdoses per 100,000 people, and it's by a wide margin. Like we have a serious issue here. So what the Scottish government were wanting to do was set up a system like what the Netherlands had, and the English government basically told them to fuck off. And I think that's kind of like
For once.
Wait, what?
I mean, that's best for England for once.
Oh yeah, for once, yeah. So my issue with how they were wanting to do it over here was, say you take the Netherlands system for example. If that's a private business, I have no issue with that. But my tax money should not be spent on letting people be junkies. Like that's just my take on that. It's just no, I don't want to pay
I mean,
for people
at
to take
least
drugs.
you're clean about it. Have you ever been to Athens?
I have not. No. I do not like
Thank
Europe
God,
very much.
to be honest, because even if it's our capital city, the majority of the streets are filled with junkies. To be honest, like
That's the thing here. Like Glasgow is known for just heroin. Edinburgh's for whores. Glasgow's for
heroin.
heroin. Yeah, heroin's like train
Athens is not
documentary.
necessarily only for heroin. Besides, I mean, yeah, we have heroin, but we also have like opioids, weed, and the shit ton of it. To be honest, and besides that, I think.
That battery acid drug, Flaka, I think. Something like that.
And besides heroin, there's another drug that's quite popular in the slums. I just forgot its name. Ketamine.
Shisha, maybe. Ketamine.
And besides ketamine, there is one more. We generally have a lot of drugs in the streets.
I mean, literally gets dealed in my town. I once saw a cat deal. They weren't very smart. They did it right in front of the police, and somehow got away with it. Like they did it at a train station, and there was a police car just right in front of them, and they just got away with it. Like it was like did nothing somehow.
I mean, as I said before, the police just goes wink, wink. We'll arrest you, but they don't.
Yeah, basically.
Plus, Greece also has a law that the point of it is to prevent overcrowding jails. But in practice, it basically sets free most of the prisoners after a specific amount of time, in contrast to their to what's the word for it? In contrast to what
Of
they
their
went
total
for.
time.
I mean, say for example, a man is a serial drug dealer, and for such a goal, he's set to go to jail for 5 years, for example. He may stay in jail for about 20 months before being set off to the streets.
Yeah, that's about right.
The reason for that is to not overcrowd the jails, but that's basically resulted in a shit ton of crime since that law has been passed. And also to remind you that we don't have a death sentence, not anymore since the 70s, I think. So yeah, basically Greece is like a heaven for crime, especially small crime like drug dealing, for example, or consumption. We have a large issue over it, actually.
Yeah, one second. I'm trying to find. I'm trying to look something about. And I can't seem to find this. I'm trying to find what's the like maximum prison sentence you can get for drug dealing in Scotland. Uh, yeah, no, I'm struggling to find it. I doubt.
Non-violent crime, I assume it's probably not that large.
Well, so here's the thing, right? In Scotland, for possessing an offensive meme, or like on your phone or your PC or something, you can do a maximum of 7 years. So I'm curious.
A fucking meme.
Yeah, genuinely. So what
Basically, the EU.
yeah, so what I'm curious is, what can get you a higher prison sentence? Having a meme or selling the heroin? And that's what I'm trying to find. Let's see. Yeah, just give me
Do
a second.
people actually get arrested over there for memes? Is that actually a prosecutable crime?
I mean, most
can.
European
Well, was
countries
famous
can get.
for
You can. So, for example, I'm assuming you've heard of Count Dankula and the Nazi pug thing, where he was
Yeah.
arrested. Yeah, so he was arrested for telling a joke, and that wasn't even that was on the old hate crime like legislation. There's a new one that's even stricter now. So, like, I'm trying to think of some examples. During a pandemic, a guy wasn't able to attend his uncle's funeral because of COVID restrictions. So he literally emailed the First Minister and compared her to Margaret Thatcher and a Nazi. He was arrested for that. Early this year, we had the whole controversy with Boris Johnson and his parties, well, during COVID restrictions. And, well, the SNP were also doing it. And there was like a joke going around of starting a Facebook like group for like, oh, there's gonna be a party at number 10 at this time, and someone set one up about Scotland as well. The guy who did that was arrested. There's also people arrested for just like insulting ministers. As far as I'm aware, there's no one being arrested for having memes yet. But like, yeah, just possessing stuff can get you like a document. So like, if you have like the Looty handbook for making the Looty, that can get you arrested. Same, I'm pretty sure you can also get arrested for having the guide on making the FGC 9. But like, yeah, there's lots of stuff that is like absolute fucking bullshit like that. And I'm seriously trying to find this because it's just not being clear if you can get charged for
I actually found an article, but it's from the UK, so I don't know if it's accurate. It's up to 7 years for possession and up to life for supply and production.
Oh, really?
For Class A drugs like crack cocaine, cocaine, ecstasy, heroin, LSD, mushrooms, methadone, and methamphetamines.
Right,
and up to 14 years for Class B like amphetamines, ketamine. So yeah, ketamine you get 14 years for producing it. And then for like steroids, weed and all of that, it's also up to 14 years, but 2 years for possession.
So in Scotland, possessing drugs is
It's about the same as having an offensive meme.
No, it's not. Having an offensive meme in Scotland is 3.5 times worse.
I mean, that's not even Scotland specifically. That's basically most European countries right now.
Oh no. So that's the thing.
I mean,
Scotland,
if you think about it, it's basically illegal to even question a specific historical event. I won't mention specifically, but you can imagine which I am referring to.
Yeah.
If you even question it, you're basically risking going to jail for it.
Yeah, I'm assuming we're talking about when they made 6 million pizzas, right?
Yeah, 6 million cookies with 5 ovens in 4 days.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Let's cut this out. Let's cut this out.
Yeah.
It's Scotland's known for having like especially strict regulations on that kind of thing, though. But
I remember that the guy.
I think every European country has something like that. Some aren't as bad as others. So like, as far as I'm aware, Finland isn't as
Not
bad
every
as everyone's.
country. I think some countries didn't have laws like this, or at least not until recently. Greece gained a law that basically banned the questioning of that thing in
Yeah.
2015, I think.
Really, Jesus Christ! Like
I mean,
that's
was it
70
around
years later.
the Golden Dawn trials?
No, I think that's when Syriza got elected, basically
Oh,
an,
okay, yeah.
a leftist party for those that are in Greek. And yeah, until then it was basically illegal to do so. There weren't any, we didn't have any hate crime laws about that.
That I'm curious about. So you said they made it illegal in 2015, right?
Yes,
So you made like
at least to my knowledge.
okay. So you see if you'd made a public statement about it. Okay, so you made a movie about how they didn't make 6 million cookies, and you released this in 2014, and you kept selling it after 2014. Say you kept selling it into 2016. Could you then get arrested for it then, despite it being an old piece of thing?
I don't
I
know.
think if the
Actually,
crime is committed before the law is passed, it gets like grandfathered in is the term, I think.
Yeah, but
So
if the,
while it might be banned, you will not be held liable for having like committed the crime.
so my example though was say you'd made a documentary about it, right? If you were still selling that documentary after the legislation had been passed, could you then get charged for that?
I mean,
Yes, that would
documentaries is
probably be
a
legal.
specific thing. I mean, there must be a trillion of documentaries that basically hold a
Oh, yeah, the best one.
controversial view on this.
Yeah, easily the best one is Adolf Hitler, the greatest story never told.
Or Europa.
Well,
Europa, the Last Battle.
That is a best movie. Like the
Fan
series.
favorite.
Oh, I love that. A friend of mine recommended me. I've seen the first few episodes. I need to finish it. It's really good though. I'm no good. Everyone's gonna be alright by the end of this.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in its entirety. I haven't watched
hours
it in
long, yeah.
its entirety. Yeah, I think that the first episode is 1 hour long. It is divided into 5 episodes, each being an
By the
hour
way,
long or so.
I actually gotta leave right now, so
right.
I'm gonna leave you three finish the podcast.
But if you guys want to go back to drugs, I think it would be interesting just because we all seem to be on the same page of minimizing drug use. Seems like a societal good from all of our positions.
Yeah, but we disagree on how to do it in regards to legalization, delegalization. And by the way, once we mentioned the Discord server and the channels, it would when the episode is released anyway, I think it would be in the description. So for any listeners, you should check it out and perhaps join if you want.
There's lots of anti-Semitism, so it's very based. But yeah, okay, I've got the thing. So I know how to end it when we're done. It's all good.
Oh, thank you. And so I just wanted to sort of check about, if we could talk about various possible ways to minimize drug use, because I think it's a multifaceted.
I'll be back in right in a moment.
Okay, anyway. Secret lib talk time. How do we fix this problem? I think possible ways to solve it now that we're huddling. I think that economic incentives, either through taxation or other ways, is one possible way without going to the authoritarian solution of criminal penalties and throwing people in jail. Another one, even though it's really roundabout, is people take drugs because life sucks, so maybe making them less poor and less shittily oppressed probably will make them take less drugs. But that's like a really long-term solution.
Yeah, but at the same time, so I know quite a lot of people who are pretty well families who take drugs.
I just wanted to crack open a bag of chips, so I'm back.
All right, that's no problem.
Nice. Okay, we had a little lib huddle,
about
on the podcast. So.
But yeah, so that's what I was saying. So yeah, so you're saying that I'm not going to deny that there's lots of people who will take drugs because of the first circumstances they're in. Like North Korea has lots of people taking drugs because they all live in switch poverty. Like North Korea is generally a drug cartel, but that's the thing is though. As I said, I know quite a few people who are well off who take drugs, and I think it's less of a I'm poor kind of thing. It's more of a just people are not happy. Like especially like the Zoomer
It's,
generation,
North Korea is
they're not
basically
happy.
methamphetamine ethno state. If you think about it, lots of people take that shit.
Oh yeah,
Everyone.
oh yeah. I was like, well, I was watching a documentary about that. Yeah, like if you take like a North Korean, you take him to America, like they'd think it's insane how everyone isn't like constantly smoking meth and shit.
And that's the weird bit about Asia. It's basically been using what we may consider drugs in the West for quite a long of time. Like in the Vietnamese War, if I may remember correctly, at least, many soldiers used drugs to stay awake for ambushes.
Yeah, they also give them gin and stuff, and then like Japanese kamikazes were also given crystal meth, so they wouldn't like
Like
think about.
basically everyone in the Axis did.
Yeah,
Methamphetamine is
Amphetamines
basically the
has
Axis drug.
yeah, amphetamines have a long history of use for military stuff, and even in Japan, specifically during the bubble era, methamphetamines were actually pretty huge. Just as a like we need to
Antidepressant.
constantly be awake and constantly working and constantly partying drug. It sort of died down after the bubble burst, and the government sort of clamped down on it. But pretty much any time that people need to be doing shit and awake for long periods of time, meth has been a thing. It's sort of actually the fact that it's like more of a party drug these days is slightly different from the
So
history of the
it's
use.
basically it's basically the energy drinks of the 20th century, if you think about it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that statement.
I mean, it's now pretty common to hear about YouTubers drinking monsters. Back in the days, radio station hosts basically took meth and other kinds of drug. Basically, the monster of the 90s.
Yeah, and
the
no,
night.
I'll agree with that. So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, I'll agree with that. And though I wanted to check one thing is, I'm assuming that for me and Liquid, we're not in favor of using criminal punishment to deter drug usage. I'm not sure what Liquid's opinion is on how to deter drug usage. If he believes that there should be governmental or societal
I think it's more of a societal
interventions.
thing. Like when you talk about
Okay.
taxation, I kind of just recoiled as a liberate.
Right?
Yeah, taxation.
Governmental.
Why am I
Governmental.
just
No.
I hear taxation. I seethe and recoil. But yeah, no, I think it's more of a societal thing. Like I think that's quite a lot of Western society right now is the promotion of drug
we
taking.
live in a society?
We live in a society, yes.
We live in a society.
But yeah, there's like quite a lot of promotion of things such as sexual degeneracy, drug taking, all this shit, and I think as or just like the fat acceptance movement, like I think quite a lot of stuff should be viewed as negative as society as a whole, where like as a society we should promote things like being healthy, having good relationships, and not whoring yourself out. I get it, like back, like I'm not gonna go say back in the day, but like back in the day, people like you wouldn't have women who are like who've got like a body count that's in the double digits and all. And I
Why
think
was I sure that when you would start speaking about your solution for drug use, you could either go misogynistic or anti-Semitic? Why was I sure about that?
it's not. I mean, I wouldn't say. How's that misogynistic?
Yeah, just joking about it. I mean, I basically support the same thing with you on
Yeah,
that
I mean,
thing.
I wouldn't say that's saying that women should just not hurt themselves out. I wouldn't say that's misogynistic because I think it's the same thing with men though. I think I have that opinion of both sides where like I'm not gonna go as far. I don't know if I'll go as far to say all sex before marriage is wrong, but like I think like the whole culture we have about casual sex is just bad. And I think that also ties into the issue of drug use, where like stuff like that is promoted. Where as a society, we should all just understand and agree, yeah, this is bad. Don't do that. And I think then if you have that view from a young age, as like if you're hearing that from a young age, I think quite a lot of people will like have that. Like, I don't want to say indoctrinate or brainwash into them because that sounds bad, but like you'll have that attitude like I from a young age I heard that stuff was bad. I don't drink or take drugs, and I'm sure some people will just agree with that. This will just do the opposite to be rebellious. But at that point, like I believe in personal responsibility, and I think if someone else like wants to destroy their life doing all this shit, that's their problem, not mine. And I'm aware that's not helpful a view to have, but I'm quite heavily individualist. So like yeah, when someone has having issues like that, I like if they're like my friend, family or something, like I'll want to help them with that. But if it's just some random fucking person, you can make you have responsibility. You can make your own choices. I'm not, I don't get me wrong. I will feel sorry for some of these people. So like, I have a friend who has a friend who is, I'm just gonna go out and say she's a whore, and I feel bad, just in general, because yeah, it's rough seeing what's happened to this person, but at the same time, I understand they have their own responsibility, and well, they chose to do this. It's not my problem at that point. Yeah, I think people just need to choose to make the right decisions. But in the current issue, problem with society and the media and all that, is they're promoting this shit, and it makes it look like it's good when it's no, fuck no.
Though, I do have to say, and we were agreeing for so long, Liquid. I'm sad now. I've got this hurt in my heart. Just because this is, in terms of, sexual promiscuity and sexual liberation, I'm gonna have to have a lib left moment. But I will agree with you in terms of the sense of, I don't think it's... what did you say, sir?
Sorry about the noise previously.
Oh, it's all right. But I will say that I do agree with you that even though I personally have no problem and think it's good for people if they want to be sexually liberated to be so, I also will agree at least that it isn't good to bombard people with messages of like you need to have more sex to be popular or acceptable. I think that that's a negative thing. I think that anybody that wants to have like a body count in 4 digits or whatever, 4 digits would be like, where do you find the time?
You're in your 80s and you're still impacted.
Yeah, right. Like you're like finding people to pay you so you don't have to work, so you can spend that time having sex. It would be impressive in a way, but like I'm not sure if that would be a good career. But honestly, I'm okay with people being liberated that way, and I think we should have. It would be wonderful to have a different podcast to talk about, the effects of sexual liberation on society. Because I think that's another 2 hours we could spend talking.
Oh, I could go for longer, and I'm 100% sure King Proxy General could as well. That could be a future episode. I don't know what the off lefts will say about it, and I'm sure there's going to be some lib rights who are fucking seething right now, going, "Why the fuck is he turning against it?" But
I mean, to be honest about the thing about sexual liberation, not only I agree with Luke narrator right here, but I believe that it's not just his opinion, but it's also based on scientific, or at least not facts, but research data, because there has been at least a specific amount of research on the specific topic, and there is a lot of evidence showing that people who are how can I say it? People who frequently partake in such deviant activities are more depressed than the average person. Like that, frequent sex promotes.
yeah, because they're
isn't good for your mental health.
you're not having connections with other people. Like,
not only that, it's also that you basically. How can I say it? Since sexual contact in any kind is basically a dopamine release.
Yeah,
You might enjoy it for a few seconds, but it's based on it's based on chemicals in your body. It's basically that there is a specific amount of dopamine release after an orgasm, and based of that you receive the pleasure. So if you do that thing frequently, speaking on a daily basis, or even more than twice a day is enough for that, you're basically hooked on that dopamine. And doing the same thing over and over again basically burns out those dopamine receptors. So you're basically rotting your brain based on that addiction to the dopamine release. So you, not only are you not satisfied with the same amount of that I can't say it. I can't say for either porn, sex, or masturbation because it's basically all these things. It's not one of them specifically. So not to generalize, I'll just say sexual contact. So basically, if you do that thing on a daily or at least a regular basis, uh, you're dissatisfied with the original amount of that, and you basically want to do it more and in worse conditions, in more deviant ways, to say the least.
Yeah,
So
Just-
a guy who could go from porn consumption to basically more extreme kinds and fetishes of porn, and in more amounts of it.
yeah. So
Like
a good
basically
example of that would be
you could go from jacking off like once a week to twice, thrice, and eventually 2 times a day in some cases.
yes.
I have one question.
You go
Yes.
first.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Liquid. Which is if you've got like a monogamous wife that you are living with for your entire life and only have sex with that one person, but have sex with that person like twice per day, wouldn't it theoretically be the same amount of dopamine in the brain? Like, I don't see how monogamous sex at a certain rate is different. Like, does the research say that you get more dopamine for having sex with different people, or like?
That thing goes from for a sexual contact in general, for orgasm, whether that comes from masturbation to porn consumption to regular sex, whether monogamous or polygamous. Basically, it's not healthy for you to do it on a regular basis. I mean, the data doesn't say that you shouldn't do sex in general. I mean, even for my standards, I'm not a monk. I believe that at least in some extent, sex is a normal part of human interaction, of human relationship in a marriage. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do it at all, but not in a regular basis, say like not more than once a week. It's not healthy for you, whether mentally or physically.
Okay, once a week you think is the healthy, like, good medium.
Yeah, at most you could say.
Okay. I'll say that again, lib left moment. I'm gonna respectfully disagree, and you can respectfully disagree with me. I guess I'm the pervert here, so.
Anyway, I'll say what I was going to say. Was James talking about like becoming more sexually deviant? I was going to say a good example of that was I don't know if you two know your Warhammer 40k lore, but there is a
Slanesh.
Slaanesh, sir, Slaanesh, and I was thinking about getting a tattoo of the symbol of Prince of Pleasure. So
Lib
I'm not
left
talking about
moment.
Slanesh, I'm talking about Dark Eldar. Well, they're technically related to Slanesh. So yeah, what happened with them was they just became. It just started off as just like, oh, there's a little bit of sexual degeneracy like behind the curtain and all that, and then it got like more open, and then it became murder fucking, and then they all fucking died because they created what is essentially the god of rape. Yeah, where like that's a pretty good example of what he's talking about. Where yeah, it just keeps getting more and more extreme because
It's
it's
kind
never
of
enough.
depressing if you think about it. That
Oh, yeah. Dark Eldar.
technically speaking, the Dark Eldar are more akin to what the Eldar race was originally than the regular Eldar are. That's basically like the late stage of the Roman Empire, if you think about it. Complete sexual deviance, rape, porn, fucking diesel.
Yeah, it's fairly depressing. I mean, I don't love Eldar lore. They ain't my jam. Necrons. No, they're my jam, but yeah, Dark Elder's Lore is pretty interesting at the same time. But yeah, that's a pretty good example of just like what he's talking about, how it's just never enough.
Yeah, that's the thing with porn. I mean, at least one of us has experienced it. At least when we were teenagers, we have some experience with the shit. Like, porn is never enough, and
Yeah,
it's just a matter of how much time it takes for you to break off of it. For me, at least personally, pornography is just another kind of drug in its essence.
I'd agree with that
It's
somewhat.
both
Yeah,
addictive and has a lot of health hazards for you, both mentally and physically.
yeah, I'd agree with that somewhat. What was it? I was about to say something. I just lost it. God damn it. What was I about to say? You're gonna have to give me a sec. I try to remember what it was. Oh right, yes, I can remember what it was. So you were saying how like everyone's important at this point. So there was a study I think they were trying to do in the US that showed a difference in brain activity between between men who had seen porn and men who hadn't, and they had to cancel the study because they couldn't find any men in the university who hadn't seen porn. Which
I do remember hearing that as well. Yeah, so that's pretty well known.
21st century moment.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Though I'm going to take a moment to just throw out a sort of crazy take here, because I do agree with you guys that pornography in particular does have addictive effects. Obviously, I think you would sort of have to be completely ignoring the evidence to state anything otherwise, and that it definitely does negatively affect people's lives in terms of desensitizing them and making it harder for them to engage healthfully with sort of like sexual mental frames and such. I'm going to go ahead and someone might go, well, Andrew, you're a self-professed pervert, and this person over on this lib left side, aren't you a hypocrite? And I'm going to go, no, because I like to read written erotica. Because I think that actually, if you take it away from actual like the video thing, it is healthier. If you're looking at artwork or reading novels or whatnot, to the degree that anybody might say humans just gravitate towards this, I think it is a harm reduction approach. To encourage consumption of that over other things, just because I do believe that if you just say people should not consume any kind of erotica, period, like that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the modern world where we have an internet. But that was my rant, and now I will be quiet again.
I have a serious question. See, you were talking about artwork. Are you arguing for hentai? Are you arguing hentai? Are you?
Don't ask me how much I spend on Patreon, but I will just go ahead and say yes.
No,
yes,
no.
I'll yes.
Jesus
no, I think my bigger issue than porn with this kind of stuff is like OnlyFans and that kind of thing. I think that's where I have don't get me wrong, I have an issue with like porn and all, but I think OnlyFans and those kind of things, like you get those pay streamers on Twitch as well. I think those are a bigger issue as well.
My issue is not exactly for that, because people who engage in sexual deviances, for me, it's basically like a burnt piece of paper. You can't save it. Commerce, basically.
I'm sorry, King. I apologize. Forgive
me. I'm not personal, but I believe that at least for most porn addicts, you can escape from it, but as long as you're stuck in a porn addiction, that's more of a problem for yourself, not society in general. However, I have an issue with a specific kind related to porn fandoms and communities, and that thing is basically grooming. I believe you think what I'm talking about, like communities basically engaging and promoting this activity to children, as that, and that's especially thing with Discord or Twitter. You see a shit ton of 40 years. Excuse me.
Hell yeah, Jesus.
You can see like a tremendous amount of 13-year-olds who basically know everything about online pornography that even some adults may not know. And those people in 5 to 10 years are gonna basically ruin themselves over that shit.
Yeah,
And that's basically my biggest issue with pornography. The fact that since it's normalized so much, it's basically ruining lives by promoting itself to underage people.
Well, and this is something that I think it's another one where we're going to be something where all of us agree that something is an issue, but we have different approaches to how to solve that issue. In that, I do believe that everybody in this chat is going to say that, young people consuming like unfiltered pornography off the internet is a bad thing. I really doubt any of us are going to have a problem with that.
That's basically the beacon that created Chris Chan, if you think about it. So that's a huge amount of bullshittery that's already produced by this amount of grooming.
yeah, but the Christian was, but isn't there quite a lot of aspects? I actually know someone who's like an expert on Christian. I could bring him on at some point because yeah, he's like watched the entire documentaries of like all the documentaries about him. Like he knows what he's talking about, that kind of stuff. But what I was gonna say was that so a friend of mine was actually met like I was talking to her about coming on today for this topic. And I was gonna say like since you're talking about like 13-year-olds who know like more about pornography than like adults, like she's one of them. So this could have been way more awkward if she'd actually come on, but yeah, that would have been weird. But maybe we should get back to the main topic of drugs.
Let's go back to drugs. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's skip back. We were talking about addiction, but let's go back to drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, I was like talking shit about the railroading in the last episode, but like,
I mean, at least for me, the topic is related because personally, I believe that we should treat pornography like it is a drug. Like,
we could just
and
like, or we could just upload this as drugs and sexual degeneracy. Double
I
topic,
believe as a society we should take the Russian template for the law. That basically it's okay if you consume pornography, but it should be legal to promote it. That's my opinion, at least.
But what?
Like
No,
pornography production, or at least within the country, should be legalized. Or,
Criminalized,
or
made
at
illegal.
yeah,
Okay.
or at least that would be the ideal for me. I know it isn't very much realistic. It's basically kind of utopian, but if it is achievable, I believe this would be the ideal. Elsewise, at least penalize the deviant forms of degeneracy.
I just think parents need to just not let their kids on the internet.
Yeah, that's basically my main target because at least at the state of the porn industry, a lot of kids are hurt from it. It's basically available to everyone and everywhere from not only the internet, magazines, television, the media. You can see pornography even in Twitter or Google. If let's say, for example, you search, you can basically come across pornography accidentally on Google by just typing some shit that might come across as hentai themes or porn themes. Say, for example,
Yeah, parents
uh,
shouldn't let their kids on the
it
internet.
might sound a bit specific, but it's happened to me more than once. Like I'm trying to browse a specific topic for research, either to get on a website or to read some stuff. And because that word has been named after, I don't know, some DeviantArt or Twitter shit, it basically comes in the image results. I don't want to search for it, but I come across it accidentally. That's basically the average way a kid gets to know about pornography. He doesn't search for it, but comes across it accidentally, and that basically marks him for life. And that I believe is too dangerous for a society. It's unhealthy for the youth.
I just think yeah, parents just shouldn't let their if, when I'm a parent, when I'm older, right?
I
Like
mean, I
my
believe that online
dad,
pornography should be monitored for it. and not to be as available as it is. It should be available to adults, but not to everyone.
So I'd like to. Is it okay to step in for a moment?
Yeah, no
Yes.
problem. Good.
Okay, so I think that we've brought up two interesting topics here in turn that I'd like to talk about in terms of execution, because it's one of those things where the idea I think is very attractive. For for instance, criminalizing pornography in production. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, well, this should make less pornography, right? Or for instance, access for children, right? It's like, well, let's just make it so kids can't access pornography. That should solve it, right? But for both of these, I think that there's issues in the terms of sort of the devil in the details. That for specifically for the criminalizing pornography, we can see with the drug war, which is that when you criminalize something, it creates a black market, and when you create a black market for something, it means that the government no longer has any control over the contents because it's all illegal. And so you might make pornography as an industry smaller because it's it's kind of harder to run like multi-billion-dollar shit in a country if it's all illegal, though drug lords do it. But the thing that you'll have is that anybody that was limiting themselves when it comes to pornography is going to take those limiters off because they aren't obeying the law anymore. Like, having pornography where you just slap a woman around, if it's like, well, if your market ship wants more perverted stuff than that, it'll get worse. There won't be any kind of oversight on that market whatsoever because it'll be 100% in the illegal sphere. And so I think that there is an unintended consequence here that needs to be thought of if we're looking at criminalization of pornography, because I don't have much research regarding the Russian underworld, and the Russian underworld is specifically regarding sex trafficking, but in terms of anecdotal evidence, it's not a good scene. It's a really bad scene. And so I think that the Russian model... what did you say, Liquid?
Who the fuck's been telling you about the Russian, like, human trafficking scene? You're saying you've got anecdotal,
He knows his sources.
he knows the sources, huh?
No, I don't really have many sources. It's more of one of those things where, you'll just be reading... What'd you say, sir?
He's the one who's been you're the one who's buying all of it from Russia.
No. I only have humanely sourced artists, that are supplying my supply. So
That's what you meant. Look, it's all good. We know what you meant by Patreon. It's all good.
Oh, I literally mean Patreon. Like, dude, you do not understand how much written and drawn erotica I consume. You would laugh. And I don't, even when I say that, it sounds like I'm equivocating. Like, I don't have a problem with OnlyFans. Though if we get into the parasocial relationships that come with OnlyFans, like, that's another thing. We're going back into, like, the addiction loop, right? And the dopamine thing. Because
I believe that OnlyFans should be banned outright.
Yeah, and I can understand why you're saying that, King, because it really is addictive. It's really addictive.
You just make him sound like a complete Chad every time you call him King.
I'll give people that win, right? Like, I'm not gonna cut someone down unless I just gotta say, look, I disagree with you. But so I'll give King, the Chad dumb for this one.
Honestly, now sometimes I might interrupt, but that's not on purpose. Sorry if I'm doing it, but it's just a habit that I must cut down on. Sorry to cut you off.
Sorry about what?
Sorry for interrupting you sometimes. I'm not doing that on purpose. It's kind of a habit.
I think we're doing okay here. I don't think anyone's talking over each other much. Occasionally it happens, but I don't feel talked over. Though I just want to go back to the access for children to the internet one, because again, this is one where I think everybody agrees, like, children shouldn't be accessing pornography. I don't think anybody is going to sit here and say, like, children should be accessing pornography. Nobody is going to say that. But if it's like, well, how do you execute a plan that makes it so that anybody under the 18 doesn't have access to pornography and everybody over the age of 18 does across the entire planet? across all governments, because the internet is the internet everywhere, but like governments are different governments, and that's one of those things where it's like, if we had a one world government, and I hear Liquid's heart going no,
Yeah.
you could do that, but a one world government has other issues that we're looking at. But without a one world government, like a unified individual ID system locked to internet access that is pegged to your birthday is impossible. I would say, unless just literally the people regulating the internet, like the internet agency.
I don't deny that that basically it's impossible to regulate it completely, but it isn't 100%. But at least it will stop some amount of unauthorized access to pornography. And for me, even a small amount of it is at least enough. That's at least some thousands of kids that haven't been groomed into pornography addiction.
So over here in Britain, they're actually trying to do that, where you have to get a wanking license.
No, I heard that. Yeah.
Wanking license.
Yeah, but one, I think it's just a civil liberties violation, but the other issue is just
Wait, isn't the walking license? Excuse me. Isn't that walking license basically just an Irish ID?
so yeah, you need to have like ID to access pornography sites is what they want to do, and then they've tried to do this before and like it just gets struck down, and I think they're trying to do it again now. But the issue I have with it is, well, to just put it extremely bluntly, the British police are extremely corrupt and are pretty far left, and there's quite a lot of corruption around, like just absolutely destroying the lives of right-wing people, such as, because this is going on YouTube, I can't say his actual name, so I'm gonna say Romy Tomlinson.
Unjancula.
Not him. I'm talking about Romy Tomlinson. Anyway, if you know who I'm talking about, you can figure from the name. Anyway, his life has just been completely destroyed by the British police, and I just do not trust them to have control and know what, like, who's got a porn license, like, because you know they will just leak. They will just leak who does if they have an issue with someone. And I think it's a really bad idea to give them that power, just because they will use that for ideological reasons. So, and I get like you want to stop kids from accessing it. I just have the attitude of just parents shouldn't leave their 2-year-old with an iPad and just say, go a fucking head, play parent for me. Like, no, they need to actually parent. And I think having the government step in and say, well, we'll do it for you, is just increasing the issue of parents who just don't want to parent. Because the government shouldn't have to step in and do your fucking job for you. And I think that's just continuing that they're just not parenting. And I think they need to figure the shit out themselves instead of having the government step in and solve every issue for them. Because I was saying, like, when I was coming out, like, my kids aren't getting access to the internet till like 16, maybe. Like, Jesus Christ, no. Like, there's, like, it's just not a place for kids, and that's pretty clear. And that person uses 4chan, like, yeah, no.
At least that's I believe a blessing for Zoomers, that at least the amount of us that want to be responsible parents have experience on the dark side of the internet. We're not basically like boomers who have never experienced at least not the modern state of the internet and don't know how much fucked up shit lies in there. Like, because say for example, because my parents didn't know any of this, they basically handled me unauthorized internet access. Not completely unauthorized, but they basically let me watch YouTube and shit without much regulation, because they thought there wouldn't be any illegal shit in there. And by the age of 10, I came to know about Happy Tree Friends.
I think I'll go one of two ways with, like, our generation, how they raise their kids when it comes to stuff like the internet. I think either it'll be like, as you're saying, where they know that there's fucked up shit on there and they won't let their kids access it, or they'll just having become addicted to it themselves, just let their kids on it, just thinking like, oh, I use the internet, it's great. Let them on
Okay.
TikTok or whatever. I think I'll go one of two ways.
I want to propose a third way, sir.
Oh, really? I'd love to hear a third way.
Well, I mean, it's because I mean, you might say, well, that's not a third way. That's just like the X way, but twisted. But I do believe that if we are, on the lib angle, right? There's this sort of, well, it's we don't want to like choke all the and it's kind of impossible to prevent this. Just make the internet kid friendly. And it's also, you can choke your kid's access to it, but I mean, like, your kid's friend is going to have a phone. Like, your kid is eventually going to get on the internet. Like, it's kind of hard to just completely protect kids. And so, for me at least, there's a certain degree to which it's like, in this modern society, to some degree, at some point, you sort of have to, tell them, like, look, you're going to see some weird-ass shit on the internet, like, and we should talk about it. And also just give them critical thinking tools. So it's just like, there's going to be, like, stuff you see, especially relating to romantic things, that, like, isn't real. It's this weird stuff that, like, you shouldn't take as how to interact with people. And you might see it, and you might feel weird about it, and then, like, you might, as a parent, have to have a conversation with your kid about that. And granted, that's the awkwardest conversation ever. But you want to
there, yeah.
But you want your kid to feel like they can talk to you about it, and also to be able to not to think for themselves about it, right? Because ultimately, the only person eventually that is watching over everything your kid sees is your kid. You can watch over a lot of it, and you should. But, like, you need to give your kid the tools to mentally develop themselves too. I think especially in our modern world, like 50 years ago, it wasn't an issue, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to be like, search your kid's room for the Penthouse magazine or something and throw it in the garbage, or search it and be like, okay, well, this episode, this magazine wasn't so bad. It was just naked girls. There's nothing really perverted about this, so I'll let you keep it because you're 16 and it's about time, or whatever. Oh wait, no, I didn't say that. But there's, in America at least, there's sort of a tradition of kids getting access to pornography, and if it's not too bad, then people sometimes turn a blind eye. But the point is, you should only consume it when you're 18. But when that doesn't happen, you want kids to have the tools to grow up healthy instead of unhealthy, to be able to talk to people about what they've seen instead of being shunned for what they've seen, right? To be able to have, like, somebody that can guide them through the screwed up, fucked up world that they're seeing without thinking that they're going to be punished for it, without thinking that there's something wrong with them. And I think that that's a really difficult conversation in modern day society, but it's one that needs to happen inside the home.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's a mix of both, where it's like, yeah, as I was saying, the internet's not for kids, so I think that that's like, it's like, yeah, you can't make the internet kid friendly. It's like taking a really dark and violent movie and like you take something like Apocalypse Now.
Serbian
You
film.
can't make Apocalypse Now for kids, and the internet's the same way, where it's just, you're never going to be able to take this thing and make it child friendly. And I think there needs to be a mix of that, where, like, yeah, you don't let them on it, but at the same time, you do need to make them aware of, yeah, these things are going to be out there. So I think it's a mix of both, where, like, yeah, you do need to warn them ahead of time. Don't just, like, when they have a friend who pulls out, oh, hey, I've got so-and-so X-rated videos, and they see this for the first time, they aren't just dropped in the deep end with no knowledge of, like, what they're about to see. So I think, yeah, there's, like, a mix of both, where they need to be able to know, like, oh yeah, this shit is bad, but at the same time, like you should be trying to keep them away from it. But yeah, I agree with what you are saying.
Do you want to weigh in, King? Because obviously, like, me and Liquid are definitely, like, living out over here.
No,
So
I mean, I have mixed feelings about this. From one hand, I agree that at least kids should know what to stay away from, but it shouldn't be know too much about it. I just don't want to grow up as a parent and have my kid know what pornography is from a too young age, even as a deterrent. because if the kid knows too much about what to stay away from, it would basically stay as an urge in him. Like you have
Yeah.
like a constant urge to at least check it out, since he knows what it is and he must feel tempted to it. Uh,
And I can agree with that. Like, if you go to your kid and you say, "Don't go to this website," they're going to go to that website. So you can't like tell them exactly what you're trying to protect them from. But and you don't want them to, too young be exposed to this. So I do think it's a very gentle balancing act. With like, if you see something that's weird in, I don't know, a romantic way or something, talk to me. Is pretty much how you have to start it off. Like, just not even suggest what's out there, but just like, if you see something that freaks you out, talk to me. Is probably the best you can start with. You don't really want to, be like, if your friend talks to you about 50 Shades of Grey, don't listen. Like, not going to start with that conversation.
I think that's
Not-
where, I think that's where
Imagine if your kid is told from you that 50 Shades of Grey is some like slasher film, and he goes to the theater to watch just that, and then leaving the theater thinking, where is the gore?
This sort of reminds me of I was talking to the kid of a friend recently, who was I think, yeah, she was 19 at the time, and mentioning that, like, she knew, like a couple of years earlier, she'd known, or I guess when she was in middle school or whatever, like, people were reading, like, middle schoolers were reading 50 Shades of Grey. But they weren't talking to their parents about the fact that they were reading 50 Shades of Grey. They were reading 50 Shades of Grey and talking to each other about it. And
Jesus
it's like,
Christ.
oh God,
Ow.
that's a horrible situation. Like, even as a self-perversed pervert, I think that's a horrible situation, because it's like, that's just bad. It's not. It teaches you horrible things about human relationships. Like,
If you think that reading 50 Shades of Grey in middle school is bad, wait until you hear about sexual education.
but,
I mean, I've read about the booklet that basically has the material that is put into the curriculum, and you won't believe what kind of fucked up shit kids must read about in like elementary. From third grade or so, sexual education has to do about not only anatomy but like masturbation, gay relationships, and shit like that. From third grade or lower.
I think that just shows how fucked like the entire West, like just the entire world are. That like, that no one's having, that people aren't having enough kids, but at the same time, not the ones who are just not raised right. So we're just fucked.
Yeah, and that's you can already see the fruits of that situation, because if you see at like Zoomers, yeah, if you look at Zoomers in the modern age, they know about shit that you didn't even know in their age, or even 10 years later. Like most Zoomers nowadays know about pornography, anime, hentai, and shit like that from like 10.
Why you put anime in with hentai and pornography?
Have you seen have you seen anime that is targeted to late teens?
What, like Naruto?
I mean, besides Naruto, some anime isn't exactly hentai, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but like,
It has the occasional boob.
yeah, but there's loads of anime that's just like, that just completely.
Yeah, not all, I won't disagree, but an amount of them do. And the anime that Zoomers nowadays know of isn't exactly the kid-friendly kind of it.
I mean, I don't watch. I watch a little bit of anime here and there, but like, yeah, I don't watch any like that kind of stuff. I stick to like classics, Dragon Ball Z, Death Note, Naruto.
No, those are just anime with dark themes. I'm talking about animes with nudity.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. But anyway, do you want to start finishing up then, or we can go for about an hour and a half? Or do you probably have to go? I'll probably have my dinner in like half an hour or so. So, do you guys want to? Do you have any like final thoughts you want to say about it? But the topic as a whole of just addiction, really.
Yeah, I guess, and we didn't really. Well, I guess we sort of touched on the possible negative effects of authoritarian legislation. We didn't really talk too much about lib ways of dealing with it, other than like try to teach your kid how to deal with the fact that the world sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could just. This was just.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to talk to your kid about it. You can just leave it to see himself. I'm pretty sure he will know how fucked the world is by the age of like 14 or so. I
Yeah,
did.
I think the ellipse solution is just.
Like my parents didn't need to talk to me about it. I already saw the results of that. Like I don't want to sound cocky about it, but I was pretty mature about it at a young age. I came to see that our world isn't exactly perfect.
Yeah. Though I am going to say, like, with this critical thinking thing. You were mentioning that Zoomers are exposed to soul warping anime at a young age. Despite the fact that I am very far above the age of many boomers, I'm gonna have to say I was exposed to soul warping anime at a young age. And it's like I'll sit here and be like, I turned out okay, and then you guys are gonna be like, you're a lib left, and I'll be like, yeah, well,
I mean,
Um,
you are a regular I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to be insultive, but you are a regular porn consumer. So correlation.
But like to be fair, like even back like in the 90s, like kids were like seeing some pretty like bad anime. So like as an example, there are a lot of people who were like kids in the 90s who were like, yeah, when I was a kid, I saw Akira, which is concerning because Akira's a fucking violent movie. Like that's a really violent movie.
Akira is pretty good though, to be honest.
It's awesome. I love
And
that.
it isn't too violent. I mean,
Come on, think about the end of that movie.
look,
Like,
it's not exactly a slasher film, but
I mean,
it is pretty violent, but not too much for like a teenager.
no, but I'm saying like, these are like kids. Who like their parents are like, oh, it's animated. Let me show my 8-year-old Akira. Like bad idea. Like yeah, take this from someone who's seen the movie multiple times and has read the entire manga as well. Just like, no.
Yeah, titles can be deceiving. Like imagine being an Italian and wanting going to the book club and seeing a film that is titled Salo, and you basically want to show it to your film.
120 Days of Sodom, so I think at that point you figured out what the movie is.
Imagine the parents just walking into the DVD club and saying, "Oh, Salo, is it about my city? I want to teach my kid about that. It's a very nice place." And then
And they get to the
closing.
shit.
I mean, Marquis de Sade was a pretty fucked up guy. It's pretty common knowledge. Like, I'm pretty sure the guy's rotting in hell right now, in like the deepest depths of it.
That's a good movie to like. I like and hate Salo. I think it's a really well-made movie. It's just I never want to watch it ever fucking again. Like
Wait, you've watched it.
you watch it once and never again. That's like
So it's basically like a live leak video. Like you've watched it out of curiosity and never again.
basically.
That phase when my first time seeing a Chinese person was on a live leak.
But yeah. Anyway, any last thoughts before we finish up then?
It's already time to roll up the discussion.
Yeah, so I'm saying like, yeah. If no one has anything else to say, well, I think we can just finish it here then.
No, I don't think there's anything to add here. Just that. No, I don't think we left anything out.
Yeah.
I think this is maybe not a final thought relating to what we talked about, but I think there's a lot of room in a future podcast to talk about the societal effects of the sexual liberation and stuff. Because even though it does entwine with addiction, I think there's also a lot of other factors that, there's differences of opinion across the quadrant that would be interesting to talk about. But I think here, we came to, we talked and I think got to understand each other's positions about, and there was a lot of common ground regarding the nature of addiction and, what ways are probably, good to solve it and how there are flaws in a lot of different approaches. So I'm glad we could find some common ground here, guys.
Yeah, I think this could make a great episode in the future to come back to this topic with the three of us. Because, but yeah, who wants to close out then? Because home ain't here.
I just want to finish my words with this that the sexual revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
It's a pretty solid quote to end on, even though I completely disagree with it. So I think we're good.
Yeah. Edge Kaczynski over here.
And I'm definitely not mailing something to